This wind is gonna kill me. We have a huge backyard. Our property is a full acre and our house sits pretty much on the front half. So that means we have close to a full half acre of backyard and of dirt. My husband Bryce does a lot of auto fabrication and some metal work, so he has a lot of stuff. When we found out we were gonna have this much land, we agreed that he could use the back half of the backyard to store all of his stuff. My only condition is I don't want to have to look at it from the house. So today we are going to begin to build a really cool horizontal wood fence separating the front half of the backyard and the junkyard.
This video is sponsored by DAP Products. There are several different ways to construct a wood fence. We decided the easiest way to attach the horizontal slats to the fence posts was to simply screw them to the face of each post. We could then follow up with a decorative 1x4 trim board to cover up the seam and exposed screws. An additional 1x4 cap attached to the top would help give us that sleek modern look we were looking for and also prevent the ends of the boards and posts from absorbing too much water over time. The first thing we needed to do before we began was to mark out the location for the fence. The plan was to tie in the wood fence to the existing block wall on the far east side of the house. We then used an oversized surveyor's measuring tape and measured from the house, the block wall on the east, and the block wall behind us to give us more or less a straight line across the property. We also laid out a small angled section in the corner and about 30 feet for the fence to return at a perpendicular angle. We used steel stakes and mason line to mark the back edge of where the fence posts needed to line up. We then marked the location for the wood posts that would be set in concrete every 8 feet along the length. If you're unsure about what size footing you need for your fence posts, I left a link to a concrete footing calculator in the description box below. We wanted to use an 8-inch diameter auger that came with a fence post hole digger that we could rent from our local Home Depot. So with a dimension of 8 inches wide, our footing needed to be about 24 inches deep. Normally, digging a 2-foot deep hole using a gas-powered auger isn't an overly difficult task. But in our yard, with our extremely hard-packed desert soil, digging the 20 post holes that we needed became a huge job.
This hole right here is dangerously close to our main water supply line that runs from the well to our house. So we're gonna hand dig it, just to be safe.
Eventually, we got all 20 holes dug and it was time to start setting the wood post. We purchased an inexpensive concrete mixer off of Craigslist last year when we put in our front steps. If you haven't seen that video, you'll definitely want to check it out. I'll leave a link in the description box. We are super frugal DIYers and I'm always trying to show you guys ways to save money, but with this size of project, if you don't already own a concrete mixer, I highly recommend you look into renting one. Trust me, your shoulders and hands will thank you. Once we set each post in the concrete, we nailed on a temporary 2x2 brace to make sure that the post was plumb on all 4 sides while the concrete cured. We also nailed scrap boards horizontally from post to post to help give them strength temporarily. If you're thinking those posts look awfully tall, here's why.
Okay, the plan is we are going to use a laser to make sure that all of our posts are level with the top of our concrete block fence over here. Problem is the laser doesn't show up too great outside, so the sun is just about set and we are going to try to do it during dusk. Hopefully we can see our laser.
We were able to mark the laser line across all 20 posts just before the sunset, and then the next morning we used a square to make our markings a little bit more clear. At this point, Bryce used a circular saw with the blade at full depth to cut around the posts and to trim them to their final height. Bryce worked in construction for over 10 years and often used similar techniques when he was framing houses. If you don't have advanced circular saw skills like he does, I would recommend maybe using a reciprocating saw. With the posts all trimmed to their correct height, it was time for me to apply stain. We like the look of black steel fence posts, so I chose an opaque deck stain in the color Charcoal by Behr. Outdoor products like those designed to be applied to a deck provide both color and moisture protection in one product, and in my experience, hold up much better than paint over time. I applied 2 coats of the deck stain using my Graco cordless airless sprayer. While waiting for the posts to dry, I started working on the horizontal fence slats. Rough sawn lumber, as opposed to the smooth milled lumber like you typically find at Home Depot, is a much better material for outdoor use, especially if you're going to apply a finish to it. The rough texture on the surface absorbs more product, creating a much better barrier against moisture and also being a lot less likely to flake. Rough sawn lumber can be a little hard to find, so we ordered ours through 84 Lumber, which is a commercial lumber supplier that also has a retail side. On the horizontal slats, I applied 2 coats of a semi-transparent deck stain in the color redwood. After letting the boards dry for a couple of days, it's time to start attaching them to the fence posts. The boards we used were 16 feet long, which is wide enough to cover 2 panels, but we needed to start with one smaller 8-foot panel against the fence. If we attached all 8-foot boards on that smaller panel, we would end up with perfectly vertical seams every 16 feet along the fence, which could be potential weak spots. Instead, we decided to stagger the 16-foot boards and then infill the gaps with a few more 8-foot boards, creating staggered and ultimately stronger seams. We found the easiest way to get these heavy horizontal boards in place was to first use a nail gun to temporarily tack them to the posts. We could then follow up with outdoor rated deck screws. I used a little bit of scrap wood to create 1-inch tall spacer blocks. Occasionally, we would have a board that was a little twisted from sitting outside, which we were able to pull into place using a heavy-duty clamp before screwing it to the post. It took us about a day and a half to install 121 slats. We attached the black vertical slats the same way that we attached the horizontal boards, by first tacking them in place using a nail gun and then securing them to the posts using deck screws.
All the 2x6 fence slats are up, and then on the face where we have these ugly seams where the boards butt together, we want to cover that up and make it look a little bit cleaner. So we have 1x4 fence pickets. They're the same width as the 4x4 posts behind them, and so we've painted them black. We are going to place them in front of the horizontal pickets and screw them into the posts behind, covering up our seams and kind of bringing that black vertical accent to the front of the fence.
I went inside to cut smaller 1x4 boards to create the caps that are going to cover the top of the posts and the vertical slats. I wanted to create a waterproof seal between the cap and the top of the posts, so I decided to use Dynaflex Ultra by DAP. Dynaflex Ultra is an advanced outdoor sealant that provides all-weather protection even in our intense Arizona sun. The seal is 100% waterproof, and Dynaflex Ultra stays permanently flexible, so it can endure expansion and contraction caused by wood movement or temperature changes. After applying a healthy bead of Dynaflex Ultra to the caps, I placed them on top of the fence posts and then held them temporarily in place using galvanized brad nails. At this point, the entire fence was built. I just had a few more finishing touches like covering up the exposed screw heads. For that job, I pulled out one of my favorite products, DAP Premium Wood Filler. Premium Wood Filler is extra cool because not only is it a wood filler, it can also fill in grain and work as a seal coat. It can be tinted any color you need, and it also has strong impact resistance, which means it won't sink, crack, or fall out of the hole. It's also one of the only wood fillers that's approved for outdoor use, making it perfect to use on our exterior fence.
Last thing I'm going to do to finish out the fence, I'm gonna gild the lily a little bit. I found these solar powered lights that I'm going to put on the posts.
Attaching the plastic solar lights to the wood fence posts was also another perfect application for Dynaflex Ultra. I applied a bead of the heavy-duty exterior sealant around the perimeter of the back of the light, so once I slid it into place on the screws, I didn't have to worry about water getting in behind the light and getting trapped against the wood. Ready to see how our modern horizontal fence turned out? I'm really glad we went with the two-tone look. Although the reddish-brown stain might seem a little intense by itself, the warm color actually matches the Corten siding on our house almost perfectly. We're also really happy with the 1-inch spacing, creating a partial view fence. Although it doesn't hide the junkyard completely, we live in a super windy area, and this design will be able to take a lot more wind load. Also, we're still able to see if somebody who shouldn't be is walking around in the back. Once we get landscaping in, including some trees, I think my view of the junkyard will have just the right coverage. If you want to see more of the modern house that we built ourselves, check out the full Building Modern on a Budget house series. And if you like other types of DIY content, check out this video as well. Do you think you'd ever try building a wood fence yourself? Let me know in the comment section. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.